All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the technology that is driving the absolute death of the traditional 100-person company. We are moving incredibly fast from an era where AI just generates text straight into an era where AI actually executes real work. We're talking about the massive shift to Agentic AI. To really grasp what's happening, you just have to look at these staggering numbers. We're seeing hyper-lean teams hitting massive revenue metrics that used to require huge corporations. Look at Midjourney. They reached $200 million in annual recurring revenue with just 10 people. Or Cursor, hitting $100 million with just 20 people. How on earth do you manage that kind of scale? Well, they aren't hiring massive human departments. They're aggressively using AI agents to automate the heavy lifting. For the average business owner, this means the barrier to entry is basically evaporated. The paradigm has entirely shifted from hiring more people to deploying more agents.
But to really understand this shift, we have to look at the core difference between the AI you're probably used to and agentic AI. Think of a standard chatbot, like your typical GPT chat, as a world-class Michelin star chef who's sitting in a completely empty room. Sure, they have the brain, the training, and all the culinary knowledge in the world, but with no stove, no ingredients, and no hands, they can't actually cook you a meal. An AI agent is that exact same brain, but now it's equipped with a fully stocked kitchen, hands, tools, and a persistent memory of your favorite recipes. It doesn't just tell you how to do something, it literally opens your browser and does it for you. And because it has those hands and tools, everything changes. Standard generative AI just passively waits for your prompts to create content, but agentic AI actively takes control. The large language model is no longer just a text generator, it becomes the actual decision maker. It figures out the most efficient way to compile data, decides which software tools to use, like autonomously accessing your Google Calendar or writing directly to a Notion page, and it executes multi-step operations on your behalf. Basically, you give it a destination, and it drives the car.
So how does it actually do this? It relies on the core engine of every single agent out there, which is a relentless observe, think, act loop. First, the agent observes the current state of the world. It looks at what files exist on your desktop, what a web page looks like right now, or what's sitting in your inbox. Then, it thinks and decides what to do next based on that actual reality, not just what you told it 5 minutes ago. Finally, it acts by using a tool to change something. For instance, it observes a new customer email, thinks about how to respond based on your company docs, and acts by drafting and sending a reply. And the crazy part is it repeats this loop over and over until your task is completely finished. Let's make this super concrete with a simple scenario, like ordering a pizza. This perfectly proves that these systems don't just follow static, rigid paths. If you tell a standard automated workflow to order from a specific pizza shop and that shop happens to be closed, the workflow breaks. Game over. An agent, however, uses iterative reasoning. It attempts the order, observes that the shop is closed, reflects on the roadblock, autonomously searches for a new, open shop, and course corrects to successfully place the order elsewhere. It acts exactly like a real human assistant would when faced with a minor hurdle.
Now, this gets even more powerful when you start stringing them together into multi-agent workflows. Imagine you want to build a complete software application or launch a massive marketing campaign. You wouldn't just use one agent. You'd create a boss agent that takes your big request, breaks the project down, and delegates the pieces to specialized worker agents. One agent handles the database, another designs the front end, a third handles error debugging. Or if it's marketing, one writes the copy, one sources images, one formats the email. They automatically pass their outputs to one another as inputs. You literally just sit at the top, sip your coffee, and approve the final result.
But, and this is a big but, if you just unleash these agents with vague instructions, they will burn through your money and API tokens in seconds. To control these autonomous loops safely, you have to completely change how you talk to AI. A standard chatbot prompt is usually just a vague wish, something like, "Build me a website." If you say that to an agent, it will spin up 100 files, install random frameworks, and waste your resources building something you absolutely didn't want. Instead, you need what's called a prompt contract. This is a strict framework made up of a goal, constraints, a format, and a failure protocol.
So the first pillar of this contract is the goal. You have to define a specific, measurable outcome with a very clear finish line, rather than just throwing out a vague action. Don't say, build a landing page. That is way too open-ended. Say something like, build a single-page landing site for my product launch that pushes visitors toward one email sign-up above the fold, ready for me to review locally before deploying. Notice the difference there? That second prompt tells the agent exactly how to know when it is actually done. It perfectly defines success.
Okay, once you have your goal locked in, you need constraints. These are your guardrails, the absolute do-nots. Because an agent operates completely autonomously, it will happily do something that is technically correct but totally disastrous for your project, like, I don't know, deleting old files to make room for new ones. By clearly stating constraints like no external CDN scripts, or don't touch files outside this specific folder, or only use a light theme, you prevent the agent from going off the rails. And here's a pro tip for you. Every single time an agent makes a mistake, that mistake should become a brand new constraint for your next prompt.
Next up is the format. This is where you kind of reach into the agent's head and dictate the exact shape of the deliverable before it even starts thinking. You have to be hyper-specific here. Say, output a single index HTML file with a brief markdown file alongside it. This forces the agent to structure its workflow around your exact needs. Honestly, if you can't describe the exact format of what you want in a single sentence, you don't actually know what you want yet, and you definitely shouldn't be hitting enter. Figure out the format first.
And finally, we have the failure protocol. Almost nobody does this, but it is the absolute secret to saving money. Without clear instructions on what to do when things go wrong, an agent will default to guessing, or it'll just loop endlessly trying to fix an error, burning all your API tokens along the way. Your failure protocol simply tells the agent, hey, if you are missing information or encounter an unknown variable, stop and ask me a clarifying question before continuing. It explicitly defines how the agent should handle uncertainty so it never spirals out of control.
Now, because of these protocols, agents actually learn over time to never make the same mistake twice. Most major agent platforms let you drop a simple text file, like a Claude.md or agents.md, right into your project folder. The agent reads this memory file before every single session, so if you tell it to never use emojis in professional emails, it remembers that forever. Even better, you can tell the agent to automatically append new rules to this file whenever you correct its behavior. This means the agent continuously updates its own memory without you having to lift a finger.
The really exciting part about all this? You don't need a massive engineering background or a computer science degree to start building these systems today. You don't necessarily have to write raw Python code or understand complex machine learning frameworks to get huge value out of this. So let's transition over to the actual software and look at the highly accessible tools you can deploy right now to start automating your daily workflows. First, let's look at the tools for your local coding stack. If you need a general-purpose agent that offers incredible interpretable reasoning, where you can literally watch the model think step by step through a really complex problem, Claude Code from Anthropic is top tier right now. But if you want the absolute lowest friction possible, and you already happen to pay for a ChatGPT Plus subscription, OpenAI's Codex is a fantastic choice. It drops right onto your machine and ties directly into your existing account with barely any setup required. Now, if your work is highly visual, you have to look at Google's anti-gravity, which is built on Gemini. This is hands down the absolute best agent for multimodal visual work. Because it's essentially a fork of VS Code with Gemini built right in, it can actually see what it's doing on the screen. So if you are doing UI mockups, front-end design, or comparing visual layouts side by side, this agent can look at a screenshot, instantly recognize what's wrong with the padding or the colors, and iterate on the design totally autonomously. You can even take these agents out of the terminal entirely and put them right in your pocket. Tools like OpenClaw and Hermes connect agents directly to messaging apps like Telegram. Just picture this. You can be sitting at a coffee shop, text your agent a quick audio note to pull the weekly sales data, and the agent, which is running 24/7 on a secure virtual private server, will do all the heavy lifting and text you back a formatted spreadsheet. It is literally life and business automation straight from your chat window. Looking at the wider automation ecosystem, you've got some great options based on your technical comfort level. If you want to connect different apps together, say Slack and Google Sheets, without writing a single line of code, Make.com is fantastic for easy, reliable task automation. For massive, highly customized workflows where an agent needs deep access to your Gmail or your CRM, N8N is incredibly powerful. And if you are willing to dive into a bit of code to structure those complex boss and worker multi-agent systems we talked about earlier, Crew AI is the absolute framework of choice for developers.
Okay, but before you hand over the keys to your digital life, we really need to talk about security. Thankfully, these systems are built to be safe by design. Tools like Hermes, for example, will only ever respond to your specific Telegram ID. They run in isolated server spaces, so a rogue script can't accidentally wipe your main computer's hard drive. And most importantly, you can set human-in-the-loop nodes. This means the agent intentionally pauses the workflow and waits for your manual approval before executing anything sensitive, like sending an email to a client or transferring financial data.
So the technology to replace repetitive digital chores with autonomous reasoning AI is sitting right in front of you, and it's often available for just a few dollars a month. So I have to ask you, take a hard look at your daily workflow. Knowing what you now know about the observe, think, act loop and the incredible power of strict prompt contracts, what mundane manual tasks are you going to hand off to an AI agent by tomorrow morning? Take that leap, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.